Mr. Speaker, can the Prime Minister tell us, how is his big society going?
Well, I actually believe that almost every single member of this House of Commons actually backs what we're talking about. And let me just explain what it is.
Tonight on Give and Take, the big society, charities, philanthropy and the state. Where do they all fit in?
The big society means everybody joining in the community and working together to make a better place to live for everybody.
I don't know a lot about that big society, but now you've told me, I'm going to look it up on the internet.
The big society?
Yes.
What's that?
I don't think so.
No, not at all. No.
Oh, there's a big society, this and that, but to be honest, you don't see it that much.
We in the UK consider ourselves generous. So is this new concept, the big society, will help steer us to be more generous?
I think anything that makes people think about volunteering, about thinking up people less fortunate themselves, about supporting young people, supporting older people, supporting people who can't advocate for themselves is good news.
Well, the big society idea is not new. Charitable organisations and voluntary organisations have been around a long time, have been working within communities. The big society concept is majorly about the government standing back. It comes at a difficult time with the recession, with cuts to charitable organisation funds. So charities are having a very difficult time.
It's really saddened me that they've come forward with this idea of the big society at a time of great difficulty, because it's very difficult for people to pick up on the big society when both government and local government services are naturally being reduced because of the deficit.
Talking about the big society is excellent, and this whole project is a very example of what is great about the big society, when the community are coming together to really talk about important issues. And that's what it's about. It isn't just a political slogan. Some people are negative and cynical about it, but there's a whole lot of positive talk as well. And what really matters is action, and this is what's going on here. So I'm really positive about it, and we need to encourage not just politicians talking about it, but locally people getting up and taking responsibility for their community.
If talking about it is an achievement, what should the government do to make it a real success? Maybe to give people the encouragement and vehicles to drive the idea forward. Government's role must be as partner, catalyst and mobiliser. The branding of the Big Society Bank has to come up with new ideas to keep the project in the public domain and grab headlines. So there was an introduction of the Big Society Bank.
And something I can tell him for the first time today, because of our deal with the banks, the Big Society Bank, wait for it, the Big Society Bank will be taking £200 million from Britain's banks to put into the voluntary sector.
People talk about the big society, and what they want to know is where's the money. It isn't just about money, it's about much more than that, but there needs to be money to help provide the capital for social enterprises and community organisations. So we have the Big Society Bank, now called Big Society Capital. There's a chief executive now in place. They're sorting out the legal niceties to get all approval. And in the meantime, there's, £40 million or so has gone into big lottery to be able to get money immediately into community organisations. But there's £200 million coming from the banks, as well as from these dormant building society accounts. Their estimate is up to about £800 million will be available to really help provide that capital investment in our social organisations. And we need to, in Enfield, make sure that we are in the best position to make use of that.
Banks in general terms are to make money and to pay off dividends to their shareholders. Some part of the sector have said this cannot help charities that rely on grant funding. After all, the loans have to be repaid. The government will raise a further £80 million from dormant accounts.
I think it's a good idea because, of course, these are all the accounts where there's only a few pennies or a few pounds left, and they were sitting there and nothing much was happening with them. So the idea was to take all this money and try and invest it in communities and people that could make a difference to other communities and people. So I think in principle it's a great idea. And what they're going to try and do is give loans to charities to try and help them become, as you say, self-sustaining, self-reliant. So I think it's a great idea in principle. Of course, it's actually how it works in practice that everybody will want to know. But at the minute, they're trying hard to make it work, so I really hope it does.
We were talking a bit earlier about investing in social return, investing in charitable organisations, and really being part of the landscape, because what we want to encourage is, yes, big society bank investments, but also philanthropic investment as well.
Have you heard of philanthropy?
No. I haven't got a clue. I've never heard that word before. I've never come across it.
No?
Say it again?
Philanthropy?
Philanthropy. No, I haven't heard it.
Giving time and money voluntarily to help others is seen as a noble action in society. Almost all countries have their own traditions, which they are complex and shaped in their history. According to the World Giving Index 2010, produced by Charities Aid Foundation, it found that happy nations are more likely to give than wealthy nations. Also, the report found that the UK is ranked the 8th in the world in charitable giving.
There's an awful lot of interest at the moment about philanthropy in the UK. You might be interested to know that we fund an organisation called Philanthropy UK, which is an independent charity that exists to help would-be philanthropists with information and advice on how to widen their philanthropic activity. And so we're funding them to encourage more philanthropy in the City of London.
We started 10 years ago and our aim is to help aspiring philanthropists give away their money more effectively. It's very difficult to give away money, believe it or not, and so we publish a guide to help people get started and help them through their giving journey. We're funded now by the government through their strategic partner programme, and we are part of the Association of Charitable Foundations, and we work to help their mission, which is promoting philanthropy.
Well, I mean, I think philanthropy has always played a part in our society, but I've been much more interested during the time that I've been involved in politics, not just in Parliament, but before I went into Parliament, in what we call the self-help movement. That's the voluntary sector. That's people who come together in order to work voluntarily to help the community. I've been involved in the cooperative movement, which is very much part of that self-help endeavour. And that was very prominent in the 19th century, and it's now becoming very, very active again.
Of course, helping others always makes you feel good, and it is about the feel-good factor, but you have to do it because, you know, it's like from the heart. You can't do it to get brownie points. I do it because I love it, and I love seeing people's faces, you know, when we raise money for whatever it may be.
Well, the government tells us that we're all in this together, that while we're living through these difficult economic times, everybody has to sacrifice. But we believe that some people have been asked to sacrifice more than others, and that the people that can bear the sacrifice best, in other words, the well-off, the bankers, if I may say so, and others, they could do with a little more sacrifice to help those that are least able to find their way through these difficult economic times.
But we could do more. Compared to places like America, we don't give individually enough. Certainly those with money are generous, but they could be more generous. Part of that is giving them the opportunity to do it easily, and so that may be more easily through the payroll, it may be automatically, it may be using cash points, and these are new ideas that the government are trying to put out there for people's views through a white paper on giving. But that's what we need to do, and we need to find lots of opportunities to do that. I as an MP try and encourage that with events, and we all try and do that. So that's really key, and we need to make sure that it's easier for those people who have a bit more money, and in our borough we have, you know, real differences of wealth, and encouraging those who do have some to be able to give and give more and more easily to those who don't have it.
Is the time right for charitable giving? Last year, the government launched a white paper, and many points were addressed to help promote charitable giving.
Well, I think this government has done some very interesting things, and you may be aware that it recently published a new white paper called the Giving Paper, which is encouraging all sorts of new forms of giving. I don't know, you might have come across, for example, ways in which you can use your credit card. If you're paying for a bill in a restaurant, you can round it up. It's supposing the bill came to £39.55, you could round it up to £36, and those pennies would go towards charitable causes. One of the things that we're funding, the government are putting a lot of money into new forms of volunteering, known as time credits, and we're helping add to that funding pot in London to create a time banking system for London. And on this scheme, you, perhaps as a young person, might volunteer to do somebody's shopping for them, or maybe to clean up some graffiti in your area. Hour by hour, you earn credits for that, and in return, your local leisure centre might let you go swimming for free, or you might get taken for go-karting lessons or something like that. So it's a different form of volunteering and another new way of giving.
In England and Wales, there are 162,062 registered charities. Their income is about 55 billion. Own assets is about 52 billion, and their investments is calculated to about 77 billion. However, their fortune might be they were told to work smarter and not to rely on handouts.
Christian, I object to the word handouts. We're not beggars asking for scraps from the table of the local authority. We are actually equal partners with the local authority. We're all working to do our best to support the people and the children in the borough of Enfield. And we've worked over many years to establish that partnership with the local authority and the councillors. And I think that is appreciated now on both sides. We both bring to the table important skills and experiences.
What we need to be doing is having a grown-up and mature relationship with charities and the government and the private sector, where we don't see one above the other. It's not like the government's there sitting as a master with their servants and you can pick up the crumbs off their table, whether it be grants and other things. There is a need for grants, and those need to continue in difficult financial times. But it's also about trying to have that level playing field that, yes, there may well be charities and private sector and others who can really take an active part in running services. And that's where we need to get to, that kind of relationship where charities really are the lifeblood of our community, but they're there not where we just simply give money here and there, which we need to do, but we also recognise that they are there running and leading the way in service delivery.
I think that's right. I don't think it is a handout. I think what we're trying to look at is what type of work are they doing? Should we invest in that work so they can actually take it to more people, or to develop in a different way, or actually to engage more volunteers? And actually it isn't a handout, it's about an investment for the future and to support more people, to support even more people.
With the budget deficit still hovering around the 140 billion mark, the Comprehensive Spending Review unveiled 81 billion of cuts to turn around the 43 billion a year debt interest. Charities have had to learn rather abruptly to do more with less.
Well, I don't know whether they are relying on state funding. I think the Funding Commission figures show it accounts for about a third of income for charities. And in fact, a huge proportion of charities, say 75%, aren't funded by government at all. They have no funding.
Talking about my own experience and my own charity, I know that staff are very dedicated to their work. They're very hard-working. They often take lower salaries than in other sectors and will work long overtime hours without pay.
Charities that receive funding from the state do so very often in the form of contracts or service level agreements where they're providing services on behalf of local authorities. Most charities I know have a mixed funding base, so they might have some money from their government or their local authority. They might raise money through organisations like mine, an independent trust funder, and they also, where they can, will try and earn some of their income because they've got a service that they can sell. They might provide training courses, for example, and be able to earn some money from that.
So the publication of the Giving White Paper is a helpful indicator of how widely the state is thinking in terms of changing attitudes to giving time and money. The question remains, how do you change the mindsets and personal attitudes in such an adverse economic climate?
There's a lot more the government could do to help. Businesses like ourselves and many others, they need help at this moment in time. You know, everyone's struggling. It's tight out there, and the government are not helping. The government, if anything, are making the situation worse. You know, by putting up rates and rent, and it's destroying the market out there. Whereas really, if they was contributing more, then obviously there'd be more happening in the community.
I'm one of those that believes there's more to businesses' role in charity giving than just simply writing a cheque when somebody comes along and says, can you give something to charity? And there are many, many businesses that do that, and I don't want to stop them. I mean, that's a very positive thing to do, to support your local charities, be it for cancer relief, be it for disadvantaged children, be it for the homeless. All of these are very good causes that charities represent. All of them need money, and business can help them with that. So I don't say that that's the wrong thing, but what I'd much like, rather, what I would really like to see is business entering into a partnership with charities, especially ones in the same locality as a business, of business supporting what the charity is doing. So maybe lending some of their expertise, their skills and their talents of their employees to help in the work of charities. Now, quite a lot of businesses are doing this, but not enough.
Well, I think that begs the questions that charities don't know how to run themselves, and I would disagree with that. I think nowadays there's a lot of training for people who work in charities. They are professionals, they're not amateurs. I've worked in the charity business for many, many years. I could switch tomorrow and go and work for a business and be just as effective in a business as I am in my charity.
It's in the interests of the private sector to have a good, what you might call corporate social responsibility policy, and a business that is aware of its impact on its local community and its environment, I would have said is likely to be more successful than a business that ignores its community. And that by trying to put something back into the community, it's going to be more successful and be seen in a better light.
According to figures published by the Fundraiser magazine for 2010, Whitebread PLC's pre-tax profit was 208 million, and their community investment was 41,000. Johnson Service Group PLC's pre-tax profit was 4.2, and their community investment was 15,000. Whereas Clinton's Cards pre-tax profit was 11 million, and the community investment was 389,000. So why is there such a gap and such variation?
Well, it's not so much the variation, it's the fact that it's so low as a percentage of income, how much is given, and corporate philanthropy is a big issue. I think it's something like 0.2% of revenue from the top companies is given in philanthropic gestures or projects. There is a huge push from the government and from companies themselves that more could be done and more should be done. And companies are starting to realise that they can gain a lot from philanthropy.
I think the best thing that we could do at the moment, if I had the chance, is to help smaller businesses that are struggling, because by doing that you'll create more money in the community, and there's not enough help for small businesses. They don't get enough relief, tax relief, and the rents are too high, and so shops are closing. Really, we should be boosting shops to open. There shouldn't be no empty shops, and then it will be more money going out there in the business society, and everyone will be profiting from that in the end. So it's a win-win situation, but at the moment there's no help for a small business whatsoever.
Well, I would like to see the private sector do more. One has to remember that the private sector is primarily in business to make a profit. That's the rationale, to look after the shareholder, the people who have invested in their business. But we would like to see them do more. We think that they have a responsibility to what we call stakeholders. That's to the community, to their employees, to the wider society. There are all sorts of responsibilities that they have to recognise, and we don't think they're doing enough. Now, of course, they would suggest that they need help in order to be able to do that. That perhaps the government could help them with lower taxes. Perhaps the government could assist in making sure that people are better trained so that they can take on adequately qualified staff. And I'm sure all of those things should be done.
Whether we need education about philanthropy or the private sector helping in the community in more effective ways, or perhaps charitable giving as individuals should move a gear to fulfill our dreams for a cohesive society.